Happy Friday off the grid, everybody. I hope everybody's had a great week. I hope that you're ready to relax and stitch for the weekend. I hope you have lots of plans and fun times ahead. I know that we do. So, I have left my design covered up today because I thought it would be fun to share with you guys. Do you think I finished it? Do you think I finished part 2? Or is it still on my frame? Is that what we're stitching today? I finished it! I finished it! Yay! So part 2 is completely finished. Please apologize, I realize that it's sideways. I have had a lot of comments, questions actually, from people wondering whether that is in fact what I'm doing, stitching it sideways, and yes, it is. I stitch pieces that are longer than what I have scroll rods for. I stitch them sideways, and I simply keep my pattern sideways and I stitch as if it were right side up. So I don't change the direction of my stitching. I simply stitch the entire design sideways. And it's easy. Once you get used to looking at the pattern a certain way, you're really just looking at symbols instead of, I'm not worried about where the beak is because I'm just following the design on the pattern. So I don't have to worry that it's a sideways bird. So I finished it. I'm so pleased I finished part 2. I really, really set that goal for myself to not give up, to not take this off the frame until that was done. So, that being said, what I wanted to continue with today, part 3. And I am not calling this a new start. I'm going to call this a mini finish. And this is not a new start because technically I've already started the green border that's in here because I was using up some floss from the trunk of, there's some of the green in this trunk here, and I used that. It's the same color that I'm using in the border. So I had simply used up some floss. So technically I was already started part 3 and it was already a whip. We're going to go with that, and that this is not actually a new start. It's already on my frame, and when you've got that momentum going on a piece, I'm not sick of stitching this yet. I'm not tired of this design, and now that I get to start part 3, it feels pretty sweet. So once again, this is Loose Feathers Winter, and it is by Blackbird Designs. I have had lots of questions about these patterns because, of course, they're absolutely gorgeous, and everyone loves a good Blackbird Designs cross-stitch piece. Sadly, these are discontinued, and I feel a bit bad that I'm working on such a beautiful piece, and I know that these patterns are hard to find. They are out of print. People have been having luck finding them on either Etsy or eBay, but be prepared for some sticker shock. If you are lucky enough to find these designs on either eBay or I think I've heard people saying them, they've seen them on Etsy. I have heard that the people selling them are charging a fair bit of money for them because they're so hard to find. I guess it's, what the market will bear. Anyways, so a little bit of me apologizes for stitching on these beauties that are so hard to find. However, they have been in my whip pile for so long. These came out, I think, in 2011. Is that right? Let's see. 2011, I think. Yes. See, you can see just under here, 2011 is the year that the designer, maybe she released them in 2012, but I've had them in my stash pretty much since they came out. So it's time for me to finish them up. So once again, ta-da! And I will do a proper show and tell on my next floss tube episode, which won't be next Monday because I'm not going to record a video next Monday. So it will be Monday the 19th will be the next time that I do a little update video. And I'm super excited to take it off the scroll rods. And I'm wondering how much more of part 3 I can have done before then. So I'm going to loosen my clamps, not the clamps, I use a Mark II floor frame that is from Hearthside Craftworks, which is out in Alberta. And it's a scroll rod system that has the knobs on the side, and I attach the fabric to the rods by sewing them on. So here we go. This is exciting. I think I'll leave it there so that you can still see the rest of the design while I'm stitching. I'll just tighten the knobs. I'm going to sip some coffee before I carry on. A little bit of sustenance. How careful are you guys with your drinks when you're stitching? Do you usually throw caution to the wind and keep it right next to your stitching, or do you make sure to be super careful and, you know, leave it on a different surface while you're stitching just in case? I have heard horror stories. I have actually knocked over a cup of tea on my work before, but I got to it immediately, and it wasn't white fabric. It was an off-color linen. So I washed it immediately, and the tea didn't even leave a mark. I got very lucky. Other than that, I generally tend to keep my drink a little bit further away so that I don't have to worry about spilling on it. All right, we are opening up brand new pattern. Even though I bought it 6 or 7 years ago, we are good to go. So I'm just going to also explain, I am not stitching this with the threads as called for. I don't think there's anything wrong with me showing you the ingredient list here. Blackbird Designs for these patterns has called for a bunch of Gentle Arts and Crescent colors, and I converted most of them over to Vicki Clayton's hand-dyed silks, which as well are no longer sold. The odd ones that do not have a conversion I am using DMC. So there's only a couple of DMCs in here, and actually the Manna Red and the Wild Berries, those are beautiful colors, but I just thought I would just go with the DMC for those. And what those are, actually, you can see the entire design here. This is quite good. They've given you a nice picture of all three. These, of course, were released in 3 parts. So this, as being the third, now we can see all 3 designs together. The DMC colors are going to be used quite heavily in this pattern. So, you know, actually, when I get to these flowers, I may change my mind. I used the DMC in part 1 in the strawberries and the flowers, and I will use the DMC in the flowers so that they match. However, this is quite a large design, and I might like the mild variegated of the Crescent colors, or Classic Colorworks now, I believe it's called. So anyways, we'll see. We'll get to that bridge when we come to it. But for now, I'm going to work on my letters because, of course, they're all the same color. So, brand new, letter O. And the color, the silk that I'm using for the letters, the called for was, what was it? Oh, that was actually a Crescent Colors. That's Manna Red that it called for. And I'm stitching it in Vicki Clayton's Oxblood. So it's quite a deep red. I may have enough to add this into the flower, but it is supposed to be, well, it's winter. It's a poinsettia, I'm assuming. That's a poinsettia at top. It's got to be a poinsettia on the bottom as well. Just a closed up one? I don't know. Doesn't look like a poinsettia. What is that? What is that flower? I'm not very good with, well, I have a bit of a black thumb, in all honesty. My mother did not pass that gene on to me. She's a beautiful gardener. I am not. So I have no idea what that is. I know that that's a poinsettia, and assuming that this is the same plant, that's got to be part of the poinsettia, right? Makes sense. Anyways, let's get started on that O. So, a little bit of silk on my thread. Now, because the O is farther away, I am going to start with a pin stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4 up, 4 over. So, I might have to concentrate here. I think this is my right spot. Let's double check. So I should be 3 squares from the N. And my glasses are not cooperating. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that's good that way. Pretty sure I'm good to go. All right. Don't you just love a good red? There's nothing. Oh, it's just such a bright, happy color. Just a beautiful, beautiful red. That and a really good blue, and I'm pretty happy. So get that right to the end. Now I'm going to do this part while I can see it. I'm not as close to my work as I normally would be for this size linen because of where my camera is placed. I have my work just a little bit further away from me than I'm normally comfortable with. So it's a little more of a challenge for me to see my linen. But once I get going after this initial pin stitch, I have a little bit of a fluff on my silk here, which is going to bug me. There we go. All right, so first stitch. Now I have a funny feeling. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. I have a feeling that I'm 1 stitch too low. One, 2, 3. Okay, so it should be 4 stitches from the bottom of the N. Let's see if I've got that right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I'm good. Okay. Now I have to think about how I want my variegation to play out here. So I think I'm going to just go in 2s instead of going up the row. My husband just keeps coming in and out of the room. And I just gave him the filthiest look. Then I smiled at him, so he knew I was just kidding. He may or may not have given me a little wink. So, but that's what that noise was. He's home today as well. So how many do I go up? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so fingers crossed that my eyesight did its job here and I'm in the right spot. Because I'm using a variegated thread, I am completing my stitches as I go. I always follow the path of least resistance with my crosses, so that I use the least amount of thread in the back of the design as possible, being fairly careful, especially when I know that these silks are hard to come by, as in they're not made anymore. I really lucked out with my modern folk embroidery piece that someone is very kindly doing a trade with me for some extra floss that she had. But I'm well aware that this stuff is precious commodity, so I am being very careful with the amount that I have, so that I know that I can eke it out for the rest of the design. But normally, when I kit up patterns, I generally tend to ensure that there is enough to complete the design. So fingers crossed that I will be thanking my past self when my future self finally finishes part 3. So I should have 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm good. Okay, so now I'm going to go over. There we go. The weather here has been very, very typically Canadian. It's warm enough for shorts one day, and then a snowstorm the next day. So you never really know what you're going to get until you wake up in the morning and you look out the window. And even if you look out the window, it can sometimes be misleading, because it will look bright and sunny, but the temperature will be, -5, -10, even though it's bright and sunny and there's no snow left on the ground. So we did have more snow this week, which I'm always happy to see. I am never tired of snow. I realize that I'm unusual that way, but that's okay. That is okay with me. And I think one more up and I'm at the top, and I was correct. I'm in the right place where I need to be. There we go. Oh, oops. It doesn't go on top though. Shucks. Have you been watching any good TV shows or movies lately? My husband took my son to see Black Panther last weekend, and they both really loved it. Nicholas did not stop talking about it for a really long time. They just loved that movie, so that was really nice. We don't often go to the theater, hardly ever, so it's a treat when they do go, and the kids usually love it. So we may try to see a movie during March break. We'll see. Lots of plans, lots of things to do and hang out. Nicholas is still stitching his bookmarks. He's quite pleased with himself. He cannot wait to come on a Monday Floss Tube video. So just a little heads up, most likely the next Monday video that I do, I'm going to have a little question and answer with my son. And you can meet him because he is super keen to chat on camera and tell you all about what he's been doing. He's been begging me to do it ever since he started the bookmark. So, and then when I told him that of course he could be on the floss tube episode, he said, "Can I come with you? Could I be on every Monday episode?" So I think we have a future floss tube convert in our midst. He's quite funny. He loves to tell me how he subscribed to my YouTube channel, which he did. And then he said, "Do you remember I left you a comment?" And I mean, of course I remember it. I think he left it on episode 1 or episode 2. And I think he said, "I love you, mommy," or something like that on the comment. I can't even, it was something really sweet like that. Anyways, he's still young enough to be, you know what I mean, snuggly, which I just love. 1, 2, and third one over. Here we go. So speaking of the weather in Canada, like I said, we had a lot of snow this week, sort of not unexpected, but I think a little bit more fell than what had been in the forecast. But it will melt fairly quickly. It probably won't stay around for long. But I mean, where we live, we should expect snow until May, really. We can have a snowstorm in May. So it's always a good idea. We keep our snow tires on until, well into the early spring. And, never take that weather forecast for granted, because you just never know. But last week we had temperatures in the mid-teens, and literally, you could see the kids out there in their shorts because it was so beautiful. And that for us in the wintertime is practically hot. So funnily enough, I had another woman ask me, if I would talk about a few other things that were Canadian, things that were interesting here that maybe were different in other parts of the world. And, there are a few things. There are a few things that we're certainly known for. We are known for our Mounties, our RCMP, Royal Canadian Mounted Police. In their dress uniform is how they are most known around the world, most likely on horseback, wearing their red uniform with their Mountie hat. They're a very, very well-dressed, good-looking bunch of a police force. And I know that there are at least several of Canadian viewers who watch and are part of the Off the Grid group on Facebook who have relatives who are in the RCMP police force. We have a $1 coin and a $2 coin. We call our $1 coin the loonie because it has a loon on the front. And our toonie is called a toonie because that's how Canadians roll. And when you have a loonie and a toonie, well, there you go. It's a $2 coin. We do purchase our milk in bags, which is quite unusual. I know that that's always surprising for lots of people. Not all Canadians buy their milk in bags. Sometimes those who buy their milk if they live near a convenience store, you can buy it in jugs. You can buy it in cartons. We also can buy our milk in cartons. But generally, if you have a family or if you use a lot of milk, we buy our milk in a bag, and it comes in a large 4 liter. It's sold in 4 liters, And that 4 liters is divided into 3 smaller plastic bags that are inside the large bag. And those plastic bags, this individual plastic milk bag, is put into a special jug that that most Canadians have. And that bag goes into the jug. And there's a very special technique that you have to do in order to bang the jug just right, either on the palm of your hand or on the countertop, in order to get that bag properly down into the bottom of the jug. Otherwise, if you don't do that, you're going to have milk all over the place, because the bag doesn't go down far enough, and then the top of the bag flops over when you try to pour the milk out. Trust me, most Canadians have learned that as well. And so then, the milk goes in the plastic bag, stays in the jug, and you snip the opposite corner to the handle, where the handle on the jug is. You snip that small corner off the top part of the bag, and you pour your milk from the plastic bag that's in the milk jug. It sounds so weird when I'm telling you this. It really does. It sounds absolutely insane that we have milk in a plastic bag. That we put the plastic bag into the jug. Anyways, it's very little packaging. And I know lots of people grew up with their families would save the plastic milk bag and wash them out and use them as sandwich bags. And, hey, I think that's a pretty great idea. So, milk in bags. That's probably a bit different, and maybe lots of you did not know that. So now you do. That's how we buy our milk. And I'll tell you what, the next time I do a Monday video, if I remember, I'll show you my milk jug. And I'll show you our plastic bag of milk. Most Canadians say pop. At least they do in Ontario. Canada is a very large country. So, of course, we have minor differences, as you would, of course, to be expected across the country. But we say pop. And I think when I was listening to Michelle Bendy Stitchy talk about saying pop, the way that she said it, it sounded a little different with the accent on the pop. Almost like the ah was a little bit of a shorter vowel sound. Ours is more paw, like an ah, like pop. So I don't know. It doesn't sound funny to me. We don't say soda. And frankly, generally, I usually just say Diet Coke, because that's generally what I drink. I love Diet Coke. True confession time. I have a bit of a Diet Coke, not addiction, but I love it. After coffee, that's my second favorite drink, is Diet Coke. Let's see what I'm doing here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so I need 7. This should have been one higher. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think I'm good to go. There we go. Okay. Now, where am I going? Down 1 over. So yes, Diet Coke. Oh my, I do love, especially when you haven't had one for a while. Because I do really try not to drink too much of it, because I don't like to drink that much aspartame. I don't think it's particularly good for you. But I try to moderate it anyways. But when you haven't had one for a couple of days, and then you have that first sip of that really fizzy feeling in your throat, I love that. Pretty weird, hey? But I can remember I gave up Diet Coke when I was pregnant. And that was the first thing that I wanted after having my daughter. I desperately wanted a Diet Coke. So silly but true. Anyways, so in my week ahead, since I'm not going to be recording a floss tube video on Monday, I thought I would let you know the 2 projects that I have on my mind that I really would like to work on. And I need to go down here. So the first one is the hands-on design, the chalk work, the chalk design. And that is the month of March that I will be, I have to start it. I haven't even started it yet. So that's on the plan. And the other thing that I'm pulling out of the whip pile is my Ink Circles forest flower. It's the small design that I'm doing on 28 count 1 thread over 1, and it's tiny and it's going to be perfect. I love the colors in that. The picture on the front of the pattern, as you know, it's really difficult for designers to give us true representation of what the design will look like when it's stitched in reality. The colors in real life as charted are just beautiful. And so I am pulling that out of the whip pile, and I'm going to put some stitches into that this week. Because I do like to, vary my things, vary my stitching. I'm the exact opposite of a monogamous stitcher. So that one's been on my mind lately that I'd like to get after. Now I think I am, yep, I've met up in the right place. 2 more stitches. And with that, we have, getting there. And oh, there, not too bad. All right, let's sew that thread in. I'm going to anchor this one in a little bit. Okay. Yes, I realize I have 4 needles on my needle winder. Don't judge me. Flip it back over. Okay, look at that. I think I'm pretty pleased with that. My initials are done. I'm ready to start the rest of the border here. I never put the year in. If it's a sampler that has the year in it, you can bet your bottom dollar I am not going to put the year in until that's the very last thing to be stitched, because I like it to be accurate. Even if it takes 10 years, I like it to be accurate. So anyways, I'm going to keep my thread away. They came in these nice little plastic individual teeny tiny bags. So I usually just keep my extra floss in there that isn't still on the spool. I also have cards of the older Vicki Clayton stuff came on cards, and I keep those in floss away bags. So, and that's it for me today, guys. Happy Friday, happy weekend, happy stitching. I hope you have a wonderful time. I hope you stitch a ton of whatever work in progress that just makes your heart sing. And I will see you next Friday. I will be recording another video for next Friday. Other than that, I'll see you on the Facebook group, Friday Off the Grid. I really hope you'll join us over there if you haven't already. Wonderful, wonderful stitching happening over there. There's also been a fair number of dishcloths popping up in the photo section. And I can't tell you, it makes me so happy that people are learning how to knit and just, loving it, really loving it. So we share a lot of things over there on the Facebook group. It's not always just stitching. There's a lot of friendship. There's a lot of camaraderie, but we do try to keep it mostly to stitching. It's not a sales group. We don't sell things on it. We don't, what else don't we do? Well, I don't know. It's just a friendly group of people. We try to keep it PG so that we keep everybody happy. So, if you wouldn't show it or share it to your grandma, we won't be showing it or sharing it on the Facebook group. So, there are lots of things that I do in my personal life that I wouldn't share with my grandma, and I won't share it on the Facebook group either. So if we all sort of follow the same kind of guidelines, be kind to your neighbor. If it's not nice, don't type it, and we'll keep it PG. And then I think we have the greatest chance that everybody can stay focused on the stitching and the friendship. So happy weekend, guys. I'm off. I'll see you on the Facebook group, and I'll see you next Friday. Take care.